Hey, KU fans, welcome back to the KU Sports Hour here at KUsports.com. I'm your host, Matt Tate, and I'm here with my guys, my favorite people in the world.
Seriously, I can't imagine that me and Shane Jackson are your favorite people in the world.
He's just talking about me, actually. I'm his favorite.
Oh, okay.
Good people.
So you just grouped me in with Shane. Okay.
No, you know what? You're right. You. I like you guys. You're good. You're good people. You're good humans. But you probably aren't my favorite people. We had a lady named Marilyn Pittman come to the Journal World a bunch of years ago. She did some tutorials on how to talk for television and radio and podcasts and all these things. And one of the big things she focused on was enthusiasm. Enthusiasm.
Wow, I can hear the enthusiasm in your voice.
See, she trained us well. So I guess I got a little carried away there in the intro with a little bit of enthusiasm. And hey, you guys are terrific, man. You both are. You work hard. You play harder. You're friendly.
What's this, a beer commercial?
Cigarettes. Okay. You guys are on a boat, docking in the water.
Like we're in an old Sports Illustrated.
There you go.
It's like a Newport ad.
Speaking of Sports Illustrated, if these Jayhawks keep playing like that, they're going to be in Sports Illustrated again.
Which Jayhawks? The football team?
Oh, never mind. Yeah. No. But hey, they did get written up in Sports Illustrated online. I mean, Ross Dellinger did a whole thing about Les Miles moving KU to 2-1.
He's all about Les Miles.
Yeah, he is all about Les Miles. But it is always good. The relationship there is rock solid, and it's always interesting content. So, the USA Today sent somebody in this week to do a feature, presumably on Les, and this sort of how things look in the turnaround 3 weeks in and after a big road win and all that. So, you know what? People are paying attention, man, and no one is paying better attention than Benton Smith. Benton?
Hey, that's me.
How was Boston?
I would describe my Boston experience as brief.
Brief.
Yes.
Nice.
I think like the most the image that's going to last the longest in my brain is probably waiting in line at the rental car place.
Oh, it's brutal. It's brutal.
And honestly, like I thought it was going to be a lot worse than it ended up being.
Okay,
so
good. That place. Oh my God. I don't like.
I think we got there at a decent time where it wasn't like
huge,
insane lines and stuff. But I think I was just so hungry at that moment that's why it seemed like it was taking so long.
Sure. Yeah.
I was just so eager to have a meal of dinner.
Yeah. What'd you eat?
Well, I happened to eat dinner with one Tom Keegan.
Maybe you've heard of him.
Former KU Sports Hour contributor, obviously longtime sports editor at our paper, who now works up in Boston at the Herald. And
So you had dinner and lunch with him?
I had dinner with him on Thursday. He took me and Jesse Newell of the Kansas City Star,
another former J-Dub staffer,
to a restaurant that he frequents.
Yeah, he does
with frequency on Thursday night, and we just kind of talked about how everything was going. Talked a lot about KU football because I mean, at that point, it was kind of like, what is this train wreck of a season? Because they had just lost to Coastal Carolina, so it was great to see Tom and just. Got to have a couple of meals with him and
desserts.
Yeah, a couple of desserts were involved. For Tom,
right.
Tom had desserts.
Right.
I don't think me or Jesse had dessert.
Sounds about right.
And and then Tom was at the game covering it, more of a Boston College angle, obviously.
For sure.
But
yeah,
it was
you
cool.
know what? It is cool, and he's been fortunate that a lot of in his first year out there, a lot of KU ties and connections have sort of shown up out there. The Red Sox drafted a couple KU baseball players. Marcus Morris was with the Celtics for a while. It's just pretty funny to watch. He even did a column on Carly Lloyd, the women's soccer player, talking about trying to kick in the NFL, and he talked to former Lawrence High kicker Abby Vestal, who played for Dirk Wedd and was a big story around here when she was kicking for the Lions. So yeah, it's cool to watch him, kind of weave those connections into his new job and his new life and all that. But that's awesome. You got to spend some time with him, and it's even more awesome that he got to see another Kansas football loss, right? I mean,
nope, did not happen.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. He was at a Kansas football game and he covered a loss. That's what I meant.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you see, it confused me. Yeah, but basically the beat goes on for Tom Keegan.
Yeah,
covering Kansas football, writing about losses. Yep. Right there you go. So anyway, good stuff. Before we get into more of the KU football scene and some questions from our lovely readers and followers, we got to talk a little KU basketball. The long-awaited arrival of the Big 12 schedule finally arrived.
Yeah, I'm like blown away by how big of a deal this is to people. Like, I understand that KU basketball is a big deal, but ultimately it's just dates and sometimes times attached to games that you know are going to happen.
You know they're playing everybody
what the Big 12
twice.
schedule is.
Right.
You just don't know when it's going to happen. But people have been all over your story and your blog, kind of like looking at the good, bad, and the ugly.
Right.
Like, people love this stuff.
Yeah, it's
mind-boggling for me.
I don't blame you. It bottles up in your mind. I get it both ways. I get your perplexity, and I also get their obsession. Number one,
I guess it comes from the excitement.
It does. And you can start, number one, for most years, right, they've been defending a streak. Right. And so that's a big part of it, or has been a big part of it. People are like, how does it look? Who do we start with? And so I get that. But the other part of it that's probably the most powerful is people are trying to make plans, man. I mean, they're trying to set bachelor parties and weddings and bring their stepkids to their first game at Allen Fieldhouse, and they can't plan those things until they know. And so, look, the first game is barely a month away. I mean, it's an exhibition game, but those you've got to arrange travel more than a month or two out a lot of times. So I think taking time off work, getting kids out of school, things like that are that's as big a factor as anything. Probably they're just so desperate to make these plans that they're like, where is this thing? And I don't blame them. I mean, we are too. Last year it came out on September 5th. It used to come out in mid-August. Then it was late August. Last year was the latest it had been, and then this year was September 18th, almost 2 weeks later. We had to send our preseason magazine to the printer without the schedule, which sucks beyond belief.
Yeah.
What kind of preseason magazine is it without a schedule? But we were able, before they actually printed it, to pay a little extra fee and rearrange the last page basically in the magazine huge. To get the schedule in since it came out. So
thanks, Big 12, I guess.
Yeah. We'll send you a bill. How about that? But anyway, it'll be in there, and that's exciting news. But yeah, I think the schedule, I think KU's schedule is as tough as it ever is. I mean, they obviously have a tough non-conference schedule up and down the list with Duke on there, potentially Michigan State in Maui, at Villanova, at Stanford, Colorado coming here. Those are all good teams, and there's some non-powerhouse teams that have small names but will come in here and give KU a fight too. So. That part we knew. The Big 12 schedule, it's interesting. I mean, there's some fun things. My favorite thing about it is March 7th in Lubbock, Texas, Kansas at Texas Tech, the final regular season game of the year. I don't know about you guys, but I think KU is going to win this thing by 2 or 3 games. I think it'll be wrapped up before March 7th. But if it isn't, and God help you if you count out Chris Beard ever. Right. If it isn't, and say they're tied or one of the others a game back.
Wow, and you got to win there.
Oh my gosh, or they have to hold serve at home. Sure. I mean, that just to get a tie or something like that. There is no way that was an accident, right? I mean, they built that in because those are the 2 powerhouse programs in this conference right now, and that's super exciting. I love that it opens with West Virginia. Those games have been thrilling, home and away. And so KU jumps in right away on January 4th, welcoming West Virginia to town. Bob Huggins, you can't ever get tired of having Bob Huggins in your building. So that's going to be fun right out of the gate. And then I know you were talking the other day, Benton, about game 2. I mean, that's no joke.
At Iowa State,
right? That's
your first road game,
right?
I mean, to me, that's one of the tougher places to play in the country, college basketball wise. But I feel like for KU, it's even like amped up to a whole other level, because the Iowa State fan base so badly wants to beat KU every time that KU comes into that building. So badly, rabid fans. So yeah, I think that's going to be a great way to kind of get your Big 12 taste if you're KU. I mean, because how Bob Huggins teams tend to do against Kansas, and
Right.
then you go to Iowa State. So, I mean, obviously, I think looking at KU's roster, it shouldn't be a huge issue compared to the talent the rest of the league has.
Right.
But I mean, that's kind of a way to kind of let these guys who are new to this know what it's going to be like to play in the Big 12.
Yeah, there are no gimme games. Everybody knows that. KU's got 4 big Mondays. That's the most you can have per conference rules with their tie into ESPN there. So 4 for the 14th year in a row, I think, and 3 of them are at home, which is a little bit rare. 2 of them are against Oklahoma State, home and away.
That's weird.
That was weird. That's not a huge game. It's not a huge draw. I mean, Oklahoma State's. I love Mike Boynton. I think they're going in the right direction, but they're still not, the marquee name and draw and matchup that maybe you could put on that night otherwise. But good for them. What a great opportunity for him to help his recruiting and say, hey, we play Kansas on 2 big Monday games. I mean, that's big stuff. Shane, what do you have to say over there? I don't know if you've talked yet.
I have not. No,
Wow.
I haven't fallen asleep, really. No, I think, you mentioned the Texas Tech game, the second game. I think the first one sticks out to me. It's just, similar to last year. KU has a whole month before they have to play Texas Tech, which
good
is
point.
probably their toughest competition in the Big 12, or who we think is the toughest competition in the Big 12 heading into the season. Obviously, anything can happen. And we thought this as well last year that, hey, KU should win this by a couple of games. And it turns out that wasn't the case. But having a whole month to prepare for arguably the biggest threat to the Big 12 title for Kansas has got to be good for Bill Self. And that team, he can really shape his team in January and feel pretty confident if you can pick up that win over Texas Tech. You feel like you're in the driver's seat going forward.
No doubt about it. Yeah, February 1st, which is wild because that's the same time as last year's home game against Texas Tech. You guys remember that? That was the day after the Silvio news came out, his suspension, and then day after Marcus Garrett got hurt in practice. I didn't think there was any way KU was going to win that game, even in Allen Fieldhouse, and then they pummeled Texas Tech.
Well, Devontae Graham gave them a speech. That's the reason.
I forgot about that.
The hype man.
I did forget about that. The ultimate hype man, honestly. Yeah, wow. And then really that was the turning point for Texas Tech. They were embarrassed, pissed off coming out of that one, and I don't think they ever played a bad game again after that. They were just so locked in and so hungry and so focused on being better than they were. So assist to Kansas for sending Texas Tech on the path to the national title game. What a year. And it's going to be really fun. Look, they're a totally different looking team. They lost a lot of players from that team, but everybody's got them ranked top 15, top 12 because they've been able to reload with some nice pieces and still have some pieces coming back. So bottom line, it's a style, it's a system. That coach is phenomenal, and I know Bill Self loves him as much as he loves anyone in the profession, certainly. So pretty cool deal. The schedule's out. Go check it out. There's a couple of stories Benton mentioned. My blog is up, kind of breaking it down with some fun looks at different stretches and things like that. The dates of the Texas games, if you want to circle those as the Hootie reunion, you can do that.
Hootie Bowl 2020.
There you go. I love it. And that'll be interesting, a little subplot, to that story and to those games. And yeah, it's also in our schedule. If you go to men's basketball at the top and click schedule, it's right there too. So plenty of places for you to keep track. If you're still making your plans, you can finally do it. Speaking of finally doing it, let's get back to KU football. We tried to record this podcast. We tried to record this podcast earlier in the week, had a little bit of technical difficulties. I'm happy to report we have hit it verbatim, word for word, what we did the first time.
Pretty much.
Well, this is new territory. What I'm saying right now is all new.
You didn't say this when we recorded yesterday.
The first time, right? No, but yeah. So instead of rambling on for too much longer, we are just going to get into the reader questions because you guys ask such good questions. Keep them coming, and they often inspire some pretty good comments and debates and things like that. So we'll talk Kansas football for the next 20, 25 minutes, and we'll do it through the questions. And I know there are some good ones because I've already heard all of them.
Well, you didn't even hear all of them.
That's true.
There's so many, like there are every week, that we can't even get to all of them.
Right.
But you heard some good ones, and now you're going to hear them again.
I can't wait.
Are you ready?
Yeah, but hey, 1 week. Let's do, I don't know when it'll be. Maybe even next week.
Yeah.
But soon. Let's just do, rapid fire. Really, try to read every question.
Okay.
And if it takes an hour and 20 minutes, we'll do it. Mm-hmm. If the way we can prevent it from taking an hour and 20 minutes is put a a moratorium on my words. Like,
I was gonna say, are you not going to be in this podcast?
Exactly. If I can only say like 11 word answers at the most, and I get like a cookie if I'm under single digits, I'd probably go way under because I love cookies. But anyway, let's get to some of the questions that we've heard, and then sometime we're just going to fire them all off because seriously, Benton says this every week, and you guys are awesome with your questions. Keep them coming. We want them through basketball season 2, and I don't think that'll be a problem either. But that's our lead-in. That's our build-up. Drum roll, please.
I don't know if that picked up on the mic or not.
That wasn't bad. I hope it didn't break your computer.
Yeah, it definitely did. Okay, we're going to have to abort.
Ready, go.
First question from Austin Bussing. I love this question. How? That was the one-word question.
Yeah.
But, I mean...
48-24
right.
is what he's wondering. How?
Yeah, I mean, because this is the question I was asking myself during the game, after the game, Saturday, on the flight home, as I'm writing things.
Right. Yesterday when we answered it once.
Yeah, exactly. This,
Still today.
This happened. This happened. And the reason it's so baffling is because of how poorly KU played just 6 days earlier against Coastal Carolina. I mean, the offense against Coastal Carolina was just like late 1990s I formation. Like the game's on the line in the fourth quarter, and you're just running the ball, handing it off. I think the last play was like a little triple option look, but into a stacked box, I mean, and then you come out at Boston College and you're spreading the field and you're running RPO, and Carter Stanley looks like a man possessed. I mean, it was just insane. I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, there are many factors that go into why KU was able to...
You mean how?
Or how, sorry, how KU was able to do that. But I think it all stems from one reason, that Coastal Carolina loss. I mean, that really made everybody change everything. Players had to change their mindset. Coaches had to change what they were going to do against Boston College, and they all had to do it on a short week. And so I think it really is that Coastal Carolina loss. I mean, if KU wins that game doing what they were supposed to do, maybe you don't see that Boston College performance. But because they lost Coastal Carolina, there was a massive makeover without really changing, the starting lineup. No, there was no changing on the coaching staff.
Right.
I mean, that's what it was. Is that loss forced adjustments, and KU responded well to that.
I love it. I mean, the play calling was awesome. That's something they had to do, and they were going to have to figure that out sooner or later. I mean, that was great that it benefited them, and they picked the perfect time. I agree with you, Shane. I think the players' mindsets were rock solid. I mean, they were, they realized. I think especially the veterans, Carter Stanley, Mike Lee, Khalil Herbert, Bryce Tornaden, others too. I mean, I think they realized, man, if we don't get right in a hurry, in a short week, it's going to be another 1-11, 2-10 season, and we've all been through that. So Mike Lee was saying that earlier this week about how that it was, and Khalil too. They both said you could definitely feel a different focus, a different vibe to practice, and even Mike said, hey, the freshmen too. I mean, they figured it out. So that's a really good sign for what's ahead and for the future. And it's also part of Les Miles, I think. I mean, I just think that he may not have done a whole lot. He may not have done much different, in fact. But I think that they realize that this is a guy who's seen great teams and great football, and his expectations are different than anything they've seen, really. So they want to live up to those. And whether he's voicing that or not, it doesn't matter. They feel it, they know it, and so they're trying to do that, because if they can do that, that's only going to help them and help the product. So I think that's the how. I mean, it was a long answer, and a lot went into it, but man, what a result. What an absolute fantastic game that they had to have.
Yeah. This next question kind of hits on some of the things that kind of made this possible, but a question from PDX Jayhawk. What are the chances the hat kept everything super vanilla the first 2 games? A mistake in hindsight, planning to steal a win at BC with a lot of stuff that they didn't have on tape. This is kind of a conspiracy theory that was floating around after that game, just because I think people were so blown away by how different it looked offensively that they were like, well, this must be the case. He was keeping things vanilla. He didn't want to show BC what this offense really is. But we even talked about this a week ago when we were
on yesterday's podcast.
Yeah, and on yesterday's podcast, which we recorded, and then it didn't work, so now we're recording it again. I might have said these very words less than 24 hours ago.
You read the script, right? I sent it. Okay, good.
Oh man, I didn't read that script. This is all on
what
memory.
Were you doing? Sleeping? Jeez, selfish.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's If that was the case, I think it would be pretty irresponsible because if you knew those plays were that effective, you needed to be running them against Coastal Carolina to win that game. You should be 3-0. You shouldn't be 2-1.
Yeah, it's alarming if that's the case. If Les Miles said, hey, we're going to be vanilla and we're going to win this game, it means, wow, you didn't take Coastal Carolina seriously. And for a program that hasn't won more than 3 games since 2009, you have to take every program seriously. So, I there might be some truth to the fact that Les Miles thought, hey, I can do it my way and we're going to win this game. And then the loss forced him to adjust on the fly. And now he started listening to more voices, and that resulted in something completely different in week 3. So there might be some truth to it, but I don't think they just said, hey, went into the season going,
we're going to save this for this week.
Yeah, we're going to be vanilla for the first 2 weeks, and then we're going to break everything out in week 3.
They probably thought that was enough, right? But it wasn't. And in the fourth quarter against Carolina, when you're like, oh crap, we could lose this game, then you go win the game. So there's some validity to it, maybe, just because it's not totally off the wall and crazy, but there's no way that he intentionally did it. I think this is just probably a product of the way he runs a season, the way he, you don't show everything week 1 no matter who you are. And so there's still more to show, and they're still going to pull out more. And I think especially with Puka Williams, there's more to pull from him and more ways to get him involved. So I think this is probably just sort of the natural progression of how seasons go under a coach who knows what he's doing. And, they should be 3-0. You're absolutely right about that, Benton. But 2-1's the next best thing, right? And at least it's like I wrote in my column. I love this, and it's probably a pretty stupid line, but when is 2-1 a better record than 2-0? When the 2 came after the 1, and it was because of the 1 that you got the 2, right? You guys follow that?
I mean, I get it because I've been paying attention to this season, but if you just
heard
that sentence out into the universe, I don't know what kind of reaction you would get.
Honestly, I'm not sure I get it. The verbal meme of the guy just staring at all the math formula, or whatever,
just scratching his head, like hand on hip. 2 is what? Okay. Anyway, 2-1 heading into week 4, and you'll take it. Benton, you said this yesterday, right? That you thought they'd be 2-1.
Yeah. I thought
it'd be different.
I thought the L would come at Boston College. I thought they would get hammered at Boston College after winning their first 2 games at home.
And that, my friend, would be when 2-1 isn't a better record than 2-0.
Mind
Do you
blown.
see what happened there? All right, what's the next question before I keep talking about that?
The next question is from Kyle Killian. Is Carter Stanley's performance versus BC a one-off or a sign of the corner being turned? And can his play lead KU to enough wins in the Big 12? Carter Stanley was 20 for 27 for 238 yards with 3 touchdowns. And those 20 completions and all those yards came after he threw an interception to open the game. It was an incredible bounce back from him.
From week to week?
Yeah, from week to week and from
series to series.
Exactly.
Right.
The ball ended up slipping out of his hands. That's what led to that pick. He told us after the fact. But, I mean, he was just on point with all of his reads, and not just in the passing game. He was making good reads on the RPO, and that was setting up the running backs for success. He was leaping over dudes, looking like he had a 40-inch vertical instead of a low 30s like he probably has. It was an
low
incredible
30s,
game.
Jeez.
Oh, I know. I asked him about his vert after the game, and he downplayed. He's like, "Oh, not very good."
Yeah, I bet it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, but as Puka Williams put it, he was super Stan.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, he was flying out there. He was, throwing balls into tight windows to Andrew Parchment for touchdowns. I mean, great performance. And considering how low he was a week earlier with forcing some things and throwing some interceptions, just an incredible bounce back.
Yeah, that's why I don't think it is a one-off. I think this is a sign of things to come. I don't know that he'll be that good every week. Probably not.
Probably not. That's tough to do.
Exactly. But I think that, he's a kid right now who believes in himself, believes in his team, feels good about what he's doing, finally feels comfortable, and is getting a real chance. And I think that can make all the difference. I mean, I said this earlier in the week, but, you just go back and watch some of these drives that he had and watch the way he handled the ball. I mean, he's out there playing just loose as he can and having fun. And he looks like he's, in the backyard with his friends, just balling. And you can really see that in the way he's handling it. He's confident with every motion he makes, including his throws. And I think when he did jump over the guy and he popped right back up and he signaled first down, I mean, that's swagger right there. And so, he's going to take his lumps. He's going to have bad throws again. He's going to get hit, and things aren't going to go that well the rest of the way, but he's going to have moments, I think. I think it was a turning point for him, and I think that's their quarterback. I think short of an injury, I think you stick with him, and no matter what now, I mean, even if he throws 2 or 3 interceptions this week or something like that, I don't think you go away from him yet. I think he's earned that, and I think he's clearly, especially for this offense they're running now, he's clearly the best they have. If not, he wouldn't have probably won the job. And furthermore, if they had decided that this offense was going to be more their base offense, he probably would have won the job in June. I mean, he's just perfectly suited to this. He's a game manager in this offense, but this offense, through the players and through Carter Stanley, can produce highlights. So it's not necessarily boring game manager, but man, he knows how to take care of this offense right now. And as long as he plays within himself and everybody else does their job, I think he's going to be just fine. And I think he could actually be pretty darn valuable and take them to some pretty good offensive days.
Yeah, part of that confidence comes from obviously the offense, and he's more familiar with it because he has been running it so long. But I think a lot of that confidence comes from what you were just kind of alluding to, is the fact that they stuck with him. You know, after as low as he was against Coastal Carolina, had to wear the hat because he was, covering his emotions after the game when talking to reporters. You could tell he was low, and yet KU comes out immediately and says, "No, he's still our quarterback." Going in on a short week against Boston College on the road against a game that nobody gave him any confidence. And then what does he do? He throws an interception on the first series, and then they still stick with him, and he bounces back with 11 straight completions. I think there is some truth to the fact that, he's not looking over his shoulder anymore. He's just coming out and playing. That's going to allow him to play his best football. Now, is it going to be what it was against Boston College? Probably not on a weekly basis, but it also doesn't have to be. But I think you are going to see the best version of Carter Stanley moving forward just because of the fact that they are sticking with him.
Yeah, I like it. What do we got?
Next question from El Gigante. Is it more likely that the Boston College win will end up being a blip on the radar like Turner Gill's win over number 15 Georgia Tech? Tough when you bring up Turner Gill in a question. After losing to North Dakota State, or that it will be a real step towards something bigger over the long term? It feels a lot different.
Agreed.
It was on the road. The offense played great. The defense played really well. This was a good Boston College team. And it seemed like a significant change from like the approach on offense. It seemed like you're going to see Khalil Herbert and Puka Williams getting the ball in space, which is exactly what they need. You've now have more opportunities for Andrew Parchment to make plays. And I thought the defense deserves a lot of credit too, because I mean, A.J. Dillon is a huge running back, and he was off to a great start. Boston College was up 10-0, 17-7. And from that point on, the defense kind of held its ground and didn't let BC back in the game. It was something to behold. So it feels in this moment like something different. I mean, I'm not like looking at possible bowl games that I'll be going to cover this team or anything.
Right.
But it seems significant in that, this maybe is finally turning a corner and heading in the right direction. And this win will be the building block as that, because it's a huge turn. It's not a quick turn for a program like KU.
Right.
It's going to take some time, but this feels like an amazing first step.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't just a win either. They totally controlled this game and beat somebody up, and I think that's pretty significant. The Georgia Tech game, as big as it was, I mean, it was a huge bounce back from a disastrous loss in the opener, 6-3 to North Dakota State. It was still 28-25. It was still a close game. I mean, KU almost scored that many points, combined in that game. KU almost scored that in this game. So the fact that they put up numbers, the fact that they thoroughly dominated up front, the fact that they had just chunk plays all over the field, and it was on the road. You're right. I mean, those things are all big. I mean, those are things you can point to when you're Les Miles 3 weeks from now, 3 years from now, and say, hey, that's who we can be. That's what we want to be. And it's always about hearing it and then seeing it, right? That's when players buy in. That's when players trust coaches and know what they're doing. And so to have that so early in your time as the head coach here, that's enormous. So yeah, I think big picture wise, there's no doubt that this feels more likely, to answer that question, that it's more of a significant win than just sort of a fluky thing. And we'll see this week. I really think it's that win is going to be great, and people will always celebrate it, and they're going to feel good about it, especially Carter Stanley. But if they go out and lose this week to West Virginia, a game that is winnable, that game kind of goes for naught at that point. You really do have to make that one mean something by going out and kind of validating it with a win this week at home against a team that, is only marginally better than you according to Vegas. So, the opportunity's there, man. And if KU football can get to 3-1, man, holy cow, you're talking about some surprise and some excitement coming to Lawrence again. So they're in a great spot, no question about it.
Yeah, I think it's a blip on the radar when you're talking about in terms of this season, because as you were just talking about, I mean, KU shouldn't be expecting to go to a bowl game anytime soon, or at least this year. I mean, but I mean, because the ceiling for this team is still probably 3, maybe 4 wins. But when you're talking about what Matt was just saying, I mean, this has an impact down the road. In a couple of years from now, players that were involved with this program on this short turnaround, they can see that it can go from that low to that high in a matter of 5-6 days. That starts to carry weight when Les Miles is talking down the road in a few years and they're at their low point. That starts to carry weight, and they go, okay, we can believe this because we've seen it done before.
Yeah, so. I don't think even last year, right? They beat Rutgers, scored a bunch of points. They've had wins, over the years. They beat West Virginia a couple of times. I mean, they beat TCU a couple of years ago, right?
I think they just beat West Virginia once.
Did they?
Yeah.
Just the Cozart thing?
Yep.
Wow, way back.
Mm-hmm. He was like a freshman?
Maybe? Yeah. Wow. I thought, they played them tight a couple of times then, I guess. It's always been one of those weird games. No, TCU's that. Yes. TCU's that team that they always compete with, and you're like, what?
Except for that one time where they had like 21 total yards.
Oh, that one time. Anyway, they've won games is my point, right? Yeah. And none of those wins, as good as they felt, those wins always to me felt more like a relief. Like, oh, thank God, something different. Instead of like, oh, this is cool. Oh, this is something to actually get excited about. Those always were sort of just like a break in the action, and then hey, next week back to your pummeling ways or whatever. So that I think that's a good question though. I like that one. What's next?
I've said it before. I'll say it again. I said it yesterday.
This is you?
No.
This is the question.
This is something I say before I introduce this question.
Gotcha.
We cannot have a KU Sports Hour without a question from Frank Saunders.
Oh, that clipped. Sorry, everybody. Well, of course. And he's earned it, man. He's here every week, all week.
Absolutely.
Here? Like actually here?
You don't see him over there?
Frank said, I've been a pragmatist about this program for a long time. This BC win feels different, as we were just talking about,
right?
Than Georgia Tech or West Virginia. Tate, you brought
there
that one
goes.
up. Or Texas. Remember when Beatty's team beat Texas?
I didn't even bring that one up.
I know. Or TCU, that was last year. It feels different than those wins to him. It feels, and he paused, dramatic effect, significant.
Oof.
Have I just slipped into irrational fanatic optimism?
No, you haven't.
I don't think so.
You haven't.
No.
Yeah, be excited. Be optimistic. This is different. I agree. It doesn't mean they're going to roll this year. You're right. Benton said that a minute ago, and he's absolutely right. But it does mean that the building blocks are in place. The foundation is different. And maybe it's built on something a little more credible, for one. Maybe something with a little more strength and durability. Maybe something that can actually last. What's cool about it is I think that, again, these guys aren't celebrating. On Monday, right? What was the first thing that Les Miles told us in his press conference? He said, when I talk to my team later today, I'm going to ask him, is that good enough? Is that all you need, or do you want more? Well, of course the answer is going to be they want more. But the coach has to ask it that way so those guys realize that we haven't done anything yet, and we do want more, and they absolutely do, man. These guys, they at this point in time, forget what the rest of us think. At this point in time, that locker room, that practice field is full of guys who believe they're going to a bowl this year. They may be crazy. They may not do it, but at least they're believing it, and it's really based on something. So, if they're believing it, if you're a fan, damn right, you might as well go nuts, man. I mean, as long as you're guarded, as long as you can handle the potential disappointment that could come, and this is sort of, this is Shane Jackson territory here, but this is sort of why I've never, ever even considered placing a legal wager on Kansas football, one way or the other. Mm-hmm. Because if you bet on them to cover, let's say, and then they go lose by 50, you go, oh my God. I should have known better. What was I doing? I mean, those of us like in this room who've been around this program so much, better. And then if you bet the opposite way, well, then there's some risk there too, because you're just thinking, what am I doing? So anyway, it's kind of in that realm. As long as you can handle the fact that the reality may still come up and slap you in the face a few weeks from now, why not enjoy it while it's hot, while it's exciting? And I that's what I'm most excited about this weekend, to see how many people take that attitude, how many people show up to Memorial Stadium. I'm guessing the crowd's going to be right around 33,000, 34,000 like they had for the first two, but isn't it possible that it'll be a lot more? Because that was a win that got people's attention, and why not go check it out? So no, I don't think you're crazy or in blind fandom or anything like that. I think you should embrace the hell out of it, because it has been hard to come by.
Yeah. Also, if you're a KU football fan, like watching this team, maybe go 4-8 should feel significant.
That should feel good, right?
That hasn't happened since Mark Mangino
There you
left.
go.
3 is the number. 3 is the number that David Beatty hit in his last year. 3 is a number that KU eventually hit the year that they fired Charlie Weiss.
Right.
That's as high as they've gotten in that win column.
Yeah, and you're really, truly in a position where you could go get it 4 weeks in. I mean, if they win this week, they'd be at 3. Right?
It can happen this Saturday.
That's remarkable. At that point, yeah, go crazy. You might still finish 3-9.
I feel like when we recorded this podcast yesterday, you had something about T-shirts. Make T-shirts.
Oh yeah,
or don't make T-shirts.
I did say make T-shirts. Yeah, Shane made one. He's wearing it right now. This guy.
I'm wearing it every day. I do think the reason why he's not alone. The reason why fans feel different is because of this coaching staff. This coaching staff was savvy enough to go, hey, we need to adjust from week 2 to week 3. And you
Great
feel
point.
like the confidence in this coaching staff is going to give KU an opportunity to win a game that it shouldn't win, because they will be Vegas underdogs in every single game for the rest of the season. But that doesn't mean that KU can't win. Whereas in the past, you didn't necessarily have that confidence going in with the coaching staff. I mean, this coaching staff makes the fans feel confident that KU might win a game that they have no business being in, or at the very least, they're competing with a lot of teams that they have no business competing with.
Also, no knock on like guys who have played here in the past 9 years, but has there ever been like a group of skill players like Puka Williams, Khalil Herbert, and what we're beginning to realize Andrew Parchment can be?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, it all blends together. I mean, James Sims and Tony Pearson were legit, right? And they played together. Brandon Bourbon was in there. I mean, there's definitely been some guys that receivers been a questionable position for sure. They've had some guys that flashed a little bit, but nothing incredible. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, Puka's he's a generational type of guy. So as good as James Sims was, and I was a big fan of that dude. I mean, he was just so no nonsense. And Tony Pearson too. I mean, without injuries, Tony Pearson would have had a much better career, but he kept battling concussions and stuff. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, you on this team, you've got a guy like Dom Williams who really can't get many carries, and he's a talented back too, right? So, yeah, I mean, gosh, they also have a receiver who played at Alabama. Have you heard about that guy?
Yeah, Dalen Charlie.
Yeah, he's on the team. So yeah, I mean, it's probably the best collection of talent at that position, in terms of true depth that they've had. So you're right. I mean, there's a lot of reasons that this feels different. And no different there. The offensive line, man, they're a bunch of upperclassmen, and that hasn't been the case. A lot of times over this last decade of despair, it's been JUCO guys coming in, so playing it for the first time, or true freshmen or sophomores, and that's just a recipe for disaster. As Tom Keegan wrote like 3 billion times, he loved the O-line columns, and he was right on the money. You've got to have guys that have developed and that are experienced and mature, and KU finally has that a little bit, and they looked great last week. If they continue to play well like that, this team will have a chance to be competitive and to be interesting. And if the wins come, they come. If they don't, they don't. But at least go out and compete. That's what Mark Mangino's early teams did. That's what got people back. That's what forced people to feel good about it. Hey, that's a team I can support. That's a team that lays it all out there and fights. And those are the teams that people want to get behind. So they're right there, man. They are on the cusp of reeling in some people like that. So that's why I think this week's so freaking interesting. It's such a big game. because after this, it gets really tough in a hurry. But anyway, let's do a couple more and we'll get out of here.
I think when Troy Powell put together this question, he was like, I want a question that will land directly in Shane Jackson's wheelhouse.
Ooh.
Wheelhouse?
Right in your wheelhouse.
Yes.
I'm excited to hear this. I remember it from yesterday.
I honestly forgot.
but I don't remember the question. So
Shane has spent so much time rewatching these games and like charting formations and like what has worked and what hasn't worked that this is a perfect Shane Jackson question. Will we stay out from under center more during Big 12 play? You have to give Stanley and the O-line time for plays to develop and allow the RPO to work its magic. So Shane had a
wheelhouse.
Shane had a post yesterday that was kind of like documenting the different formations that KU has lined up in offensively through 3 weeks. And obviously you learned as everyone else did kind of watching the game live, but you gave us the data in front of our eyes to hammer home that point, how different the offense looked at Boston College.
Yeah, it was easy to see when you're watching it, and everybody mentioned it in the next couple of days. Like, this offense looked different, and then it was pretty drastic when you just like looked at the actual numbers. So yeah, no, it's a good question. Right in my wheelhouse, as you mentioned. It was a lot easier to chart this because of the condensed version of the games when these games are 20 minutes on YouTube. So I'm just saying it's not that difficult. But no, it's a good question. I think after the first week, I wrote a blog about the difference between in shotgun and under center. And it was pretty obvious that KU had more success in shotgun in most situations. And then, in Boston College, they spread the ball out more. I mean, they went 10 personnel 22 times. That's something they didn't do in the first two games at all.
Tell people what that is, though.
10 personnel, one back, no tight end.
Right. A lot. I mean, a lot of people do know that, but some people don't.
I did get an email about it this morning.
Did you?
Yes,
okay, good.
That's a good follow up there.
That's why I'm your boss, buddy. No, I think that's important, though. I mean, everybody throws that around, and it is. You could probably figure it out, but some people probably have no clue. So yes. 12 personnel would be
one back, two tight ends.
There you go.
And it's easy. When the number is 10 or 11, you have more receivers. So in 10 personnel, there's 4 receivers.
There you go.
And KU averaged over 10 yards per play against Boston College in that personnel.
Wild.
Obviously, that lends to KU's success given their skill position players we were just talking about. Puka Williams, Khalil Herbert, even Andrew Parchment. These guys can make players miss in space, and you saw that against Boston College. So I would assume that we see more of an offense that resembles that. But given the fact that we have a 3-week sample size of this offense and that Les Miles has gone jumbo, he'll have multiple backs or multiple tight ends in almost half his formations through 3 weeks, I would guess we still see some sort of combination of the two. And honestly, it's warranted. I mean, you want to keep the defense off balance. You never want to become this, hey, we're going to pass in this formation, we're going to run in this formation. So as long as you're mixing it up, but again, having that spread formation, I think that'll have more success for Kansas.
Very cool. Excellent question. You got a grand finale for us? Something big?
A big question?
Yeah, let's just finish it strong.
Okay, all right.
Honestly, too, before you start, when we had our technical difficulties and it was like collapse nation in here and everything was just so frustrating because we all, we were in here for an hour and a half. My best goal was to get a 30-minute repeat, and let's just knock it out, get through 30 minutes. At least we have one this week. And by the time this one's over, it's going to be close to 50 minutes, which is darn near an hour, KU Sports Hour. So shout out to Benton and Shane for coming in early and making it happen. And at least for right now, shout out to my computer for keeping things real.
And shout out to your enthusiasm for keeping us upbeat on this Thursday morning. Thank
you. I didn't want to say it myself. I'm not that kind of guy. But yeah, no, I mean, it's we're on a good roll right now. Our podcasts are getting better. People are listening. People are enjoying them, and they sound better. So
they're on all sorts of platforms.
Yeah, man, they're everywhere. So I'm glad we could keep it rolling. And we're kind of like KU football right now. We've been down. We've been recording podcasts on iPhones into one random speaker, but we're on the come up here, and why not keep it rolling? So with that build up, let's finish strong here.
All right, so we're gonna close it down with an off the wall question.
Yeah.
Our guy MFW Derek. What needs to happen for College Game Day versus K-State?
I forgot about this
dude is talking about College Game Day coming to Lawrence.
Love
it. For the Dillon Sunflower Showdown.
That's November 2nd, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah. Saturday, November 2nd.
Okay. And
rivalry game.
We don't have a game time yet, right?
Nope, not yet.
I'm praying for 11 a.m. because I'm leaving Sunday morning at like 5:30 for New York. because KU basketball
Right.
plays a few days later. And I don't really want to be covering KU football until 1 a.m. and then have to head to the airport. But I will. Hey, I've done worse. So I
Game day's
will.
in town, you will.
I slept in a Sacramento airport a couple years ago just to go cover that game and not have a hotel fee. There was no need. So I've done worse. But let's talk about this. Game day. It was in
College
Iowa.
game day.
It was in Iowa last
it was
week.
in Ames.
Crazier
for
things have happened.
Iowa State,
right?
Yeah.
That's
Although
a big rivalry,
it was
though.
a down weekend schedule.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of appealing games on the schedule last weekend.
Okay, so the bottom line is, in order for that to happen, KU would have to win the rest of its games to get to that point. There's no question. They can't lose one. So that means beating TCU on the road, beating Texas, beating Oklahoma. At that point, you're ranked in the freaking top 10. So if you're in the top 10, and if Chris Kleiman and his boys down the road, who are off to a fabulous start, do their part,
This all seems really feasible.
just hear me out.
Okay.
You just got to win. That's a 50% result right there,
That's
right?
it.
Win
Flip
or
a coin,
lose.
flip a coin, flip a coin, flip a coin. That's all it is. Don't get bogged down by the numbers. It is flip a coin every time you take the field. You're either going to win or you're going to lose. So they have a 50% chance of game day coming to Lawrence. No, less than that, because
you got to flip the coin
two
multiple
results.
times.
Yeah, K-State has to hold up its end of the bargain, which is, over the years, that's really been where this rivalry struggled. K-State hasn't done enough to keep this rivalry where it needs to. No, they do, though. They have to win all the games. And here's the deal. This is obviously ridiculous. I'm obviously being a complete fool. But this is what I love about this start for KU. Fans like that, and I'm sure he was kidding too. Derek, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure he was messing around a little bit. But the mere fact that he posted that is awesome. I mean, that shows you what better football in this town and at this university can do for everybody. So is game day coming? No, it's not.
Especially when Georgia's playing Florida.
That's your pick.
Yeah.
I like that. And I think I picked Utah, Washington.
Utah at Washington.
That is my team, man. My Action
Utah.
Jackson, my Action Jackson money where my mouth is.
Did you put some action on Utah?
Yeah, I did.
Before the season began?
Utes, man. Something like 40-1 to win it all. I threw a little change that way. I wasn't afraid.
Hey, good luck.
Listen, they're going to win the Pac-12. They don't have Oregon or somebody else on their schedule.
Seems like you did a lot of research.
I did. No, listen. I read this thing on the internet. No, I did read a thing. Somebody was breaking them down preseason and it said they have 7 defensive NFL caliber defensive linemen in the program. So with their schedule being favorable, and they do have USC this week, so it is a big weekend for me. But with their schedule being favorable, if they can run through the Pac-12 and get into the playoff, the belief is that they have enough of a defense that can actually compete when they get there and maybe win those 2 games. So if they do, you guys will hear about it. Everybody on this podcast, you guys sitting in this room, Frank Saunders over there in the corner, he'll hear about it. But anyway, getting back. So I think I'm a big Utes fan this year, but I think the Utes and Washington, I'm calling that as the game. Benton's going Florida, Georgia, because he loves Florida Georgia Line. That's his favorite band.
I think you just confused me with David Beatty.
Oh, yeah, great point. That's the first time that's ever happened. And then Shane Jackson, do you have a pick?
I got KUK State,
Oh, you took it. Wear your T-shirt, man.
As we were talking about, it's just flipping a coin, so there's a good chance that KU is going to be undefeated. Really,
it's a safe
1 loss. Sorry, they've already lost.
Right. It's a safe play. You're taking the safe play.
But the idea of this is not crazy, or it's not as crazy as maybe in years past, because Les Miles factor, it makes it more likely that College game day would want to come.
If they're even sniffing around. Look, there's an 18-part series on ESPN right now, or ESPN Plus. I mean, there was an E60 on Les Miles. Yeah, he has people's attention. If you give him a reason to come sniff around and check it out, he'll close it. And that's sort of the recruiting philosophy too, right? I mean, that's interesting. So love the question, love the finale. That's a good one to end on. For Ben Smith and Shane Jackson, I'm Matt Tate. Thanks for checking out this episode of the KU Sports Hour. KU West Virginia this weekend at 3:30 p.m. at the booth. We still haven't talked about that, and I plan to. I'm not a fan, but it is Kansas. David Beatty, Kansas Memorial Stadium.
David Beatty?
Wow. Re-record the whole thing right now. Unbelievable. David Booth. David Booth. Sorry about that, David Booth. But yeah, thanks for checking out the KU Sports Hour. We'll talk to you guys again real soon on another episode.